can get replacement decals either from the dealer, depending upon the vehicle, or you can go to an aftermarket source through the internet. So let's talk about some of the things you're going to need, David.
Okay.
All right, first thing you're going to need is a putty knife or a plastic razor blade. Either one will work. And believe it or not, an eraser will work, a nice gummy eraser that's pliable. So that's one of the things. There are different types of products on the market that might help get some of these decals off. I'm not really the biggest fan of these because they do leave a residue behind at times, and that's another thing to clean up, so we want to keep it simple.
Right.
All right. And last thing is a hair dryer. But you know, one of the best things you can do is leave your vehicle in the sun. That'll get this decal a little bit more pliable, a little easier to work with. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to get a hair dryer. And the hair dryer you're going to use, in addition to leaving that vehicle in the sun, is that plus either the putty knife or the eraser. And I'll show you what you're going to do. You're just going to lift it off a little at a time. And let's see here. We're going to turn this on. As you can see, it's just starting to come off.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah. And what happens is, as we get it off and you're working it, you want to use this eraser to lift it off the paint and keep working it. Now, it can take some time. The older they are, the harder they are to take off. And I've done this before myself. I know sometimes when you have a big decal like the one you're working on, you're going to have to take your time in the sun, work on it, get that hair dryer out there and an extension cord. Don't forget to put that hair dryer back or you won't have it. Thanks, David. We appreciate your question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hair dryer in your toolbox and your medicine cabinet or in your bathroom,
in your bathroom, right.
Hey, stay with us because we talk about our next discussion point. It'll be our wild card question about what else? Electrons. Those are wild. Stay with us. Yes. We'll be right back.
Your car's ready. You're gonna love it.
Push it.
Is your old stuff good enough for your new car? Is your old cut-rate car insurance company? It's time to move up to a State Farm agent. Someone who can help you get the coverage you need at a price that fits. Life gets better. Shouldn't your car insurance company?
What's the matter, girl? Is Marty in trouble? You need a hatchet? You need a crowbar? Wall paint?
Need help choosing a paint color?
Mandy?
We've got thousands of colors and all the advice you'll need. Ace, the helpful place.
Get up to $5 grand cash back during GM Summer Drive now. Have fun with it.
The Brita Pitcher filters out the things that shouldn't come with your water, like hundreds of plastic bottles and expensive filtration systems. And all you have to do is this. Brita. Just add water.
Tropicana Light and Healthy. Now with half the sugar and calories of orange juice and a delicious taste. Counting carbs? Count on the power of Tropicana Light and Healthy.
Welcome back to Talk to DIY. We answer questions about anything having to do with cars or even motors for that matter.
And once in a while we get questions that are not quite mainstream, so we put them in our wild card category.
Now today's wild card question could be shocking. At least that's what Matt from Mobile, Alabama thinks. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, I was messing around with the car charger and the cigarette lighter in my truck, and I saw a spark and heard a pop. Ever since then, my stereo hasn't come on at all. Can you help me out?
Certainly. You know, what comes to mind is the fuses. Obviously, when you have anything happen where there's a pop and a flash, either somebody's in the car with a flash bulb or you've got a fuse that blew. And the situation going on here sounds like what happened was that cigarette lighter somehow has become loose, or a connection on it has become loose, and something arced. Now, the arc by itself could create a flash, but more likely you've blown a fuse. On the panel on the side of this particular dashboard, you're going to see a fuse panel with all the different fuses. Notice they're different colors. The colors correspond with the different amp ratings for the fuses. Now, what we're thinking is that perhaps you've got a blown fuse, and we want to talk about checking those fuses and the circuit.
Right, and if you look inside the fuse panel, there's a listing of which ones apply to the radio and which ones apply to each item. Now, if they are a shared circuit, you'll need to find out which fuse that is, and you'll need to use a checker to do that, and it's actually quite simple. You just check the fuse right across the top here, and you can see whether you have a good fuse or not. In this case, we got a bad fuse, so we'll need to replace that.
And of course, what we're thinking in summary on this is, because the radio went out and the cigarette lighter was where the pop was, the chances are they share a same circuit. So check your fuse panel and you should be good to go.
Thanks for your question, Matt. We appreciate it. Remember, your questions are the fuel that keeps our engines running, so get them to us by calling 866-TALK-TO-DIY or logging into DIYnet.com. We'll try to answer your questions on a future show.
And also want to thank our paint and body expert, Graham Adams from Tennessee Collision Repair. And thanks to you for sending your questions in. Keep them coming. We'll see you next time on Talk to DIY.
Welcome to another DIY kit. All the information you need to get the most value for your time, effort, and money. For more helpful advice, go to DIYnet.com and click on DIY Kits. Today's kit will show you how to keep your furnace in good working condition and improve the quality of the air in your home. And it's brought to you by Filtrete Filters from 3M. The most important part of routine maintenance is changing the filter regularly. There are several types to choose from. Fiberglass filters are inexpensive and disposable and protect your furnace by trapping large particles. Replace them every month or two during periods of heavy use. High-efficiency electrostatic filters are another option. These have the additional benefit of improving the air quality in your home by trapping smaller allergy-aggravating particles like dust, pollen, mold, and smoke. You can also buy permanent filters, which last for several years, but you'll still need to remove and clean them regularly with soapy water. Always turn off the power before working on your furnace. If you have a gas unit, shut off the fuel supply too. Once a year, remove the old filter and clean the blower compartment and air ducts to remove dirt and lint. These particles create additional wear and shorten the life of the furnace. Check the wiring for scorch marks or loose connections and examine the ductwork for signs of deterioration. Use a small brush to remove any white carbon buildup on gas jets. Put a new filter in place and replace the panels, making sure the electronic igniter is activated. Switch everything back on and turn up the thermostat to make sure the unit works properly. Routine maintenance will extend the life of your furnace, but it's still a good idea to have it serviced annually by a qualified technician. Log on to DIYnet.com for more on today's topic. You'll find helpful advice, valuable tips.
You know, in 1997, almost 13 million cars were recycled, enough to cause a worldwide traffic jam encircling the globe almost twice.
That's really an amazing statistic. And if you want amazing answers to your automotive questions, stay right here because it's time to talk to DIY. Hello and welcome to Talk to DIY. I'm Lauren Fick.
I'm Steve Ford. Whether it's a Chevy, Ford, or Chrysler, you want to work on it, we're here to help you out. And today, we'll focus on troublesome transmissions from slipping trannies to fluid that doesn't look so hot. And we'll call upon the help of our transmission expert, Glenn Trobe from Ray Bestis Powertrain. Glenn, thanks for joining us today.
It's great to be here.
Stay right there. We'll be back to you in a minute.
All right, if your transmission is in working order, maybe you have an issue with your radiator or just want some useful information with your VIN number. We'll be covering all that today as well.
The way to get your questions answered is to get your question to us to begin with, and you can do that by calling our toll-free number, which is 866-TALK-TO-DIY, or going to our website at DIYnet.com.
And remember that our #1 rule on Talk to DIY is if you are ever uncomfortable with any of the projects you see on the show, take your car to a certified technician. Car safety is important.
Okay, it's time to kick things off with our first question of the day, and this one comes to us from Joshua in Bainbridge, Georgia. Joshua, what's your question?
Hi, I was working on the radiator drain plug of my car, and recently the tip broke off, and I was trying to get it out. When I tried to get it out, I actually pushed it inside the radiator. Is this going to cause a problem? I know they don't float, but could it cause a clog?
They don't float unless they're made out of styrofoam or balsa wood, probably. But let's talk about it, Joshua, because you're wise to ask the question, and it's a precaution you'd want to have in working on that drain plug. This is not exactly the same radiator as yours, Joshua, but did you actually push it all the way inside and then replace it, I suppose, with another one?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so your concern is, if I put another one in, now I've got the radiator sealed again, but where's that plug going to go?
Exactly.
Right. Okay, the answer is that if you look at the radiator, of course, you got the tank on the bottom and the top, or both sides, the bottom and the top here. It could be on a cross-flow radiator, which has tanks on both sides instead of the top and bottom. In your case, I think what you've got is one that's down on the bottom like this, and here's what's notable.
Okay.
Once that plug goes inside the radiator, this is going to be a relief for you. If your radiator looked like this one, then you really have a problem. This is a cutaway, okay? Now what happens is if you look down inside the radiator, you can see this is a transmission cooler. This center pipe right here is for the transmission fluid on an automatic transmission vehicle. On a manual transmission vehicle, you wouldn't even see that pipe inside. You just have the cavity of the tank, the plastic tank. Okay. Now here's the answer to your question, Joshua. That plug is really not going to go anywhere. It's going to bounce along maybe a couple inches before it gets lodged in that spot where it stops, and it can't block enough of the radiator to prevent the cooling that you want that radiator to do. So I applaud you for going in there to service the radiator. You're probably flushing the coolant out to put new coolant in?
Yes.
Which you should do every 2 to 3 years,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, Joshua, you're doing the right thing. Answer to your question is no, you're not creating a problem there. Of course, you want to be careful when you're turning those. They're typically made out of plastic. Sometimes they're made out of brass, right? Okay, thank you, Joshua, for that question. Now, you never know when you're going to see one of our camera crews going to an auto show or an auto parts store. They answer your questions through us, just like this one from Wayne.
Got a 96 Dodge Caravan. It makes a buzzing sound when you put it in gear. What's my problem?
Okay, when it comes to transmissions, you want to look at them a little bit differently than you would other parts of the car, especially automatic transmissions. They're a little bit more complicated, and there's a lot of little pieces inside. That's why I'd like to get some expert advice from Glenn Trobe from Ray Bestis Powertrain. Glenn, what would we do in a situation? Is that buzzing normal, or is it something that's a problem?
Well, Lauren, I have good news and bad news for Wayne, and the good news is that buzzing is normal and he doesn't have a problem. See, this transmission, Chrysler calls it the A604. They later designated it as a 41TE. It's a very unique transmission. It has a solenoid body mounted to the outside, and in that solenoid body are 4 electronic solenoids. Their job is to control the application of the clutches inside the transmission. Now, this transmission has specially designed high-energy frictions that are supposed to come on slowly and slip as they apply in order to get the proper shift timing and shift feel. It's the job of those solenoids to bring these clutches on slowly, and to do that, the computer pulses these solenoids through a system called pulse width modulation. So when he puts it in gear and he hears a buzz, that buzz is just the computer pulsing the solenoids, and it is a normal condition. It won't create any harm. The bad news is that since it's normal, there's not a heck of a lot he can do about it. I can give a couple of tips. One would be that there should be an insulating sound box around the outside of the solenoid body. If the vehicle's ever been worked on before or has any repairs done, that may have been left off, so he wants to make sure that's in place. If it is in place, the only other thing he can do is he could go to Chrysler and pick up an updated solenoid body that does run a bit quieter if this is really annoying him. But the key point is it is a normal condition and it's not going to create any harm.